Family, it is yours truly, your wealth minister here, Alton D. Walden III. I am the founder of Black Business and Finance Group, where we focus on providing you and your family the tools that you need to empower you in the arena of business and finance. As we all know, we are a solutionary based ministry here. We don't know, now you know. We don't only talk about the problems, we bring the solution to the problems. And on this evening, we have Dr. Adrian Carter in the building, author and keynote speaker, who also does the same. Phenomenal book, Black Fragility. We're going to talk about that. What does that mean? What does that look like? At this time, I would like, if you will be so kind, to share and invite. That'll be great. Also, if you're tuning in, please let us know what city and state you're tuning in from. What city and state, that will be great. You can follow us, Black Business Finance. We are on Facebook and we are also on Instagram and Clubhouse. Okay, so please check us out. Go there, please join. Okay, it's a private group. We offer private information such as information in the arena of trust. Okay, also we have a lot of subject matter experts in our group that does business. Veterans, 20 years, 30 years. Okay, so all of us, we pull together our intellectual property, and it's a nonprofit group. Not to say that you cannot solicit your services in the group. Okay, but we have agreed to come together and make a nonprofit contribution. We share business nuggets and financial nuggets in there to get our people started via business and finance. So it's a starter kit group. Okay, it's for those who are, I would like to say, entry level, intermediate, and also the advanced, because those who advance are the ones that actually give the classes. So we would love for you to come into the group. Again, it's not just a drop your link group in there and move on. No, we actually literally take out the time to educate, such as from individuals like Amy Griffin, who is a lawyer, okay, in estate planning, okay, and also a good friend of mine who does trust. Okay, he is a certified licensed fiduciary in the financial arena. He did a class in there as well. So with that being said, family, it's not just, some flim flam group. You can actually learn in there and grow in there. Okay, because I'm tired of seeing generational broke. I don't know about you, but I am tired of seeing generational broke. All right, so we get ready to dive in. We have wonderful guests. We don't want to hold it up any longer. Let's go. Dr. Adrian Carter, how are you doing on this evening?
I'm well, man. I'm doing very great. I'm appreciative of you for the opportunity to be here on your platform and for the work that you're doing, man. I love that overview that you just did at the beginning, and that correlates to a lot that I'm talking about in my book. So I think it's a very great connection and segue into this conversation. So thank you for having me on.
Oh, you're definitely welcome, and we're humbly honored to have you on. Thank you so much. I mean, a gentleman who has the honorable Dr. Boyce Watkins for his book. I mean, we're the ones who definitely blessed. Anybody knows he's a heavy hitter in a financial arena. Mm-hmm. So I definitely have a great deal of respect for him in that aspect, man. He definitely is a powerhouse, man. Definitely committed to the community and giving information. And he forwarded your book, man. So how did that come about, if you don't mind me asking?
I have a wonderful contact by the name of Nicole Compton, and she's also an attorney. And she and I are good friends, and she's connected with him. And I was on her platform a few years ago. She had a program, but the four of us were on. I had to remind Dr. Watkins that we were on that program together. But when he finally remembered, he was like, "Oh, it's you." And we had a great conversation then. And she connected the two of us. And whenever Dr. Boyce Watkins has heard me speak, he's always like, "You're a smart brother. You know what you're talking about." So he said he loved many comments. So I reached out to
him. Just like him, man.
Yeah. So I have my people talk to his people, which was I sent the email to his person, right? and just said, "Hey man, I'm writing this book and I think you would like it because what it talks about aligns with his message. And I would like if he would write the format, if he would write the forward to it. I went ahead and sent him over the manuscript, and he said he did. And the forward is amazing, man. Like gosh, the forward is rich. It really sets the tone for the book. He obviously captured the essence of the book, and it works for him as well in terms of what the message. So here we are. I'm excited about it.
Absolutely. Now I know that I definitely caught the preview of your book, and I caught the video piece about you actually talking about it. You were advertising it, and you broke it down, and it captured me because you said some things that to some can be very controversial,
Mm-hmm.
and not to me, but to some other individuals, because you talk about self accountability.
Right, right. And I
And
know that,
that's the reason why I said that, because it's a lot of tension when we start talking about having self accountability when it comes to us. And you and I had a wonderful dialogue in that regard. How it's really a dual, responsibility. So please talk to us. Like, what is Black Fragility? Now, I know you had a piece as well on there from the Honorable Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. as well on one of your posts in regards to that. So please tell us, what is this Black Fragility?
yeah, I'm a I'm a DEI consultant, so I do work in the space of diversity, equity, and inclusion, also known as belonging, and in the space of justice. And you have folks who operate in this space, working with corporate level agencies, government educational agencies, to break down the barriers of how racism, structural, institutional racism operates in our society. And that's an extremely important work, especially after we've seen what happened with the shooting of unarmed Black men and women, and that how that story has continued to seem just be on repeat a lot of times over the years. There's a lot of work that I think America discovered for the first time, and was really willing to tackle. You can't have a holistic you cannot have holistic change if we don't also address the internalized racism, which is the way that Black people see themselves, and the things and the behaviors that and the mentality that Black people have bought into for themselves, that is destroying our own community. And it has nothing to do with the white man. It has nothing to do with structural racism or systemic racism.
Mm-hmm.
I could understand how one thing over a long period of time has affected the way that we think, act, and feel. But we have to be accountable for our own behavior within the Black community, for how we are impacting and destroying our own Black family nucleus, and how we are also affecting the communities at large. Black fragility, therefore, becomes when Black persons are not willing to address the accountability of their behavior and their impact on Black families and Black communities. They are demonstrating a fragile attitude within their own Blackness, and therefore they are demonstrating Black fragility. And my book addresses the issue of that Black fragility and addresses the unaccountability of Black men and women, but it's toward the purpose that we do this here, that we help each other. And that acronym HELP is that we heal, we encourage, we love, and we protect our Blackness.
Now that is powerful. I know some people will like to argue that point, because I hear so many people say that, well, it's not the way it used to be. We have more opportunities now. What do you say to individuals like that, doctor, that responds with that type of rebuttal when you say that racism still does exist today and is proven by the way that we're treated and the injustices that still occur in regards to even our sentencing in jail, the police brutality situations where some of them are just let off and They're found innocent. What do you say to individuals like that who still, for some reason, they refuse to accept the reality that it exists?
Yeah, well, we have a very clear record or demonstration of how systemic racism operates within the country. I like my good friend who says that whiteness is in the subconscious of the subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
That we are so deeply rooted in white America and how we are supposed to think, act, and behave based on the white framework, the banking industry, the housing industry, the health industry. Those things evidence on a daily basis that we live in a very racist society. However, two things can exist and often does at one time, right? Whenever you take two individuals and there is a breakdown in a relationship, there's usually going to be a level of blame that's going to be held on both sides of the aisle. Now, one side of the aisle may own 70% of what's contributing to the conflict or to the problem, and the other 30% of it may be what the other person is contributing. But if you want to have a holistic, if you want to have 100% of the problem addressed, managed, or transformed, then both sides of the table is going to have to address the conflicts that they're bringing to the table. And that's
Absolutely.
why Black fragility is so important, because however much we want to say this is what the white man is doing, um, because they are doing things right. Those systems are in change, are in place, and no matter how much we may look today and say, well, society is not what it was back in Jim Crow or back in slavery, and however further you want to go back. Well, the reality is we still have more Black men who are incarcerated than any other group of people. We still have Black women who are experiencing disproportionate birth deaths inside of the hospital based on care. We have a lot of indicators that shows that things are still going on to this day, but it's a conversation that needs to be held on both sides of the aisle.
You are absolutely correct. I totally agree with you. Uh, I really do feel like that's one reason why we don't get anywhere, because we constantly keep blaming someone else and not taking responsibility of the fact that we participate in self-inflicted pain. And I would like to touch on one thing that is very, very touchy for a lot of our people, and that's gangster rap. A lot of times, people don't want to deal with the fact that that actually shapes our thinking. There's nothing wrong with hip hop at all. And I'm 45 years old. I don't mind disclosing that information. I'm 45 years old, and I grew up during the time, doctor, where and I believe you can relate to this, where it didn't even exist at one time, and I noticed the difference in the way we maneuver after gangster rap was disseminated. I noticed how it affected how we view ourselves, how we view ourselves holistically, our women, the violence. And people always want to talk about, well, violence existed, prior to it. This we know. But it's called an enabler.
Right.
How do you feel about that? I personally do feel like it made it worse. It didn't help us any at all with that lyrical content.
Yeah. I write about that in my book, and it actually is a very tough topic, right? Because there are two sides to what rap music and hip hop is. Um, so let's talk about it on why it's necessary. Okay. So this is my statement in favor and to advocate on behalf of rap and hip hop. What happens is Black people as a group of people who are oppressed, who have been historically oppressed, are now left with little to no resources. They're targeted by the police, and they are deprived of a quality of living, right? So they're experiencing deprivation. when your person is experiencing deprivation, the only thing they have left as their most important resources becomes their voice. And so rap music is, if you cannot go out in a lot of ways and be as violent and destructive as you may want to be, and so you have to do it with your voice. You become violently destructive with your voice.
Mm-hmm.
And for those who are actually participating in that behavior and being violent and sending drugs and doing whatever they have, because at the point that you are deprived and you're dying,
Mm-hmm.
right, then you are willing to kill anything to eat,
Mm-hmm.
right? Including your own mom, dad, child, your neighbor next door, anyone. So think about it in those more drastic terms. And what they do is, still knowing that what they're doing is wrong, they voice it as a cry for help, because they use the music to inform us of what's going on in their community and what's going on in their head and what's going on in their life. So it becomes their autobiography, but it's also their cry for help, right? It's their only outlet, because there's the most powerful thing they ultimately have in a deprived space is their voice, and so they rap about it.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, the reason why I titled the book "In the 21st Century," right, that it's a part of the title, is because I think we have come to a point where, when we move from the 80s and the 90s, and we look at where we are today in 2021, we know enough to know better at this point. It's kind of like allowing a child to be a child in their ignorance for a certain amount of time, and then at some point you have to say, but you're old enough now to know better, and you're old enough for me to expect more.
Mm-hmm.
And so the evolution of rap has shown that we now have the likes of Jay-Z, who talks about business, the likes of Pharrell Williams, who talks about business, the likes of T.I. and Killer Mike, who are all about real estate, and DJ Envy on the radio talks about how he's into real estate. We have actually lived long enough to watch the transition, the evolution of our own hip hop artists who have moved from their gangster rap and from the thug life, even in presentation, to being businessmen who are real estate and mogul minded in that particular way. Which tells me then rap has evolved enough for us to have the conversation that y'all got to stop talking about this
Master
in the way
P, Master
right.
P, and now
Master P, right, and what he's done with even with his son. So those are things that are amazing, awesome stories that shows us how, hey, listen, we do not have the option of only talking about our women and our community and our people and our men in the destructive ways that we did in the 90s. We need to graduate from that.
Wow.
So for me personally, I understand the evolution. So I think it's allowed for a period of time. But now, today, we know it. We know enough, and we know better. I mean, even Jay-Z has gone back and said, "Hey, he regrets the song Big Pimpin'." Right? He saw how negative that was in terms of the perception of women, and how that's how that song brought us into the 21st century for the hip hop heads. Right? So we have an opportunity today to do different, because we now know the destruction of what hip hop music has done and rap, and what rap has done, because it became the soundtrack to the dysfunction of our people and our community. We don't have to continue to operate in that space. It was excusable for a while, but it does not make it necessary for the sustenance and the continued growth of our community.
But what do you say about, because see, I'm a former thug myself, and I wasn't raised that way. You know, it's what I listened to that influenced me. It was the people who I hung around that influenced me. Honestly, I feel like a lot of us, we live that way by default, because in my neighborhood, some of my friends' parents were so strung out on drugs, and they were alcoholics, to where, unfortunately, my friends as adolescents were unfortunately left to the streets. You know, and so I understand that a lot of us have that mindset, because we have been left to be raised by the pimps, the drug dealers, the gangsters, due to our family not being mentally stable and having a solid moral foundation for them to live by. I really feel like we need to connect with our moral foundation once again prior to us being enslaved, because I feel like racism had disrupted our way of life. To me, I call it like football. Anybody knows like pass interference. I call it pass interference, where we know tradition is passed down, customs in. And so I really feel like because of that, it severed us from our moral cord, if you will, that nurtured us into having a solid moral mentality and a family oriented mentality.
To a certain extent, right? To a certain extent. I understand when we study African history, you'll find that African history was just as destructive in many of the ways as any other group of people in history has been throughout time. The part of the reason why Black people ended up here is because back then they had slavery, they had indentured servants, and then they had a type of slavery, and then it went too far with their communication or with their agreement with the Europeans who came in, and then it came to a point where some of our own leaders began to participate in the slave trade, and that's how we all got here, right? So the moral dilemma that Black people have been confronted with is not just the American systemic racist system alone. It's just that they're faced with the flaw of being human. And when you don't nurture what it is to do what's right over a long period of time, it leaves way for conflict, violence, and for all sorts of atrocities to happen. It's not really just about the African country being where we're rooted in our traditionalism, because even they kill each other for whatever their purposes are. But there are some, and this is where I think we can pull some greatness from. There are some things that are rooted in our traditions as Black people, though, where we are more communal as people. We're not so individualized like in this Eurocentric construct. We are we look to build families and to work together in enclaves. Even how we raise our children and address punitive laws in our society as African people are different. And those are things that I think do more to restore justice than what we have seen with Europeans. What happens with the Europeans and these white demagogues over the years or over the centuries is they simply came in and just told us that our way of life was primitive, and we didn't know what we were doing, and it said it to the Native Americans, and you're dirty, and you're backwards, and you're less than a man, and you're less than a human being, and we're gonna come in and show you how to use this land that you got and make it work for yourself. Nobody asked you to do that, white people. You were just greedy and took over people's place. So buy with that. But for our Black people, though, we still have to repair our moral compass. Just in general, we would have needed to repair our moral compass 1,000 years ago, 1,500 years ago, right? Or we would have needed to repair it 500 years ago. Right is going to be right throughout time. And if it's not corrected, it needs to be repaired. So for that purpose, it's important. And I want to make another point. The psychology of rap music, though.
That's good.
The psychology of rap music is what has been detrimental. The truth is, for myself personally, at one point I had to stop listening to certain music because it had seeped into the way that I saw myself and the way I treated other people, right? Because of that mentality, it was driving in me. And when you really think about it, rap music especially is infectious with the beat. It's infectious with our lyrics, and we're so creative and dope as a people.
I love our culture. I love hip hop.
Yeah, you get to create a whole soundtrack for your life. And and live vicariously through how this music is moving for you. And it doesn't even matter what your age is. If you black and you up on hip hop, you could be 80 years old bumping that DMX. Like it don't
Absolutely.
matter, because DMX did what it did. When his albums came out, I can remember the first where I was the first time I heard his album. So there is power in that. And what we need to do as a people is use that power, same level of infectiousness, and use it for good, right? Not use it for murder, not use it to tell the stories of how negative we can be to destroy each other. Imagine that same energy is going to be there. We just need to curtail that language, and especially take away the industry from the white people who use it as a tool against our own people. We don't even control it. So the fact that we now can release music as independent artists and not have to deal with the corporate structures and control what that looks like for ourselves, we should be doing that. But that's why you have a person like Dr. Boyce Watkins who's talking about the things that he's talking about with certain hip hop artists who's saying, listen, you're allowing yourself to be used and pawned out by the industry to paint a narrative that impacts the sexuality of Black men and women, that impacts the way that we look at each other in terms of and respect each other, and the violence that's perpetrated against one another. It's clearly an agenda, because the music remains the same way in that way, even though that's not who we are as a people. And we hunger and thirst for righteousness. We really do. We sometimes just don't know that that's what we want.
Wow, that's phenomenal. Also, I don't want to overlook the R&B artists who have shifted love songs into a very vile lyrical content as well, because I noticed that I said, man, they call this, and you know, you and I, man, we grew up in the era where Luther Vandross and you know, you had Babyface, and you know, you had New Edition, and you know, I mean, Troop and Silk, and you know, I'm like,
yeah, high
you know,
five.
mint condition, you know, how, yes,
Hey,
you know,
listen, you're so right about that. One of my the comedians on Netflix, Dion Cole, has a stand-up, and he talks about how one of his on one of his bit is how we you know, back in the days the R&B used to be, I'll give you the sun, the moon, the stars, the skies, and the mountains. I'll give you
after
the world.
7. That's
Yeah,
after 7 right there.
and he talked about how the transition of the lyrics had certainly moved. And he's like,
Yeah.
nowadays, R&B just be like, I'll give you this D, you know, it's moving from D. It's
Well,
moving.
you know, I'm not really going too much comment. Depends, you know.
I get it though, right? But he was talking about but to your point, he was looking at how the music
Yes.
was transitioned from being something that was more poetic and loving and
Because I had to
endearing.
be honest now, Marvin Gaye said some things too. I mean, I'm not beating him up because I can't remember the one song. I remember he said, I be stroking. That's what I be doing.
And yeah, but to your point though, your point is massive, because right along with hip hop music, R&B right has changed to something that is just more direct and almost and in some ways aggressive, to the point that it may not even be sensual to a woman, right? Right, and we use. I'm gonna back up and I'm gonna say this to put all of this together. The most important piece of any power or energy that we have is what our voice does. It is what we say.
Absolutely, I agree.
It is literally what we say. And even to the experiment that talks about plants, where there was there are flowers that were put into 2 different groups, and in one they yelled and screamed negative things at the plant, and in another one they said nice positive things to it. And the ones that they spoke nice positive things to, the plant grew, and the ones that they yelled at. So I mean, even down to the research and the science showing that plants can hear and feel and detect the energy that's coming from you, that plant did not grow. So it shows you how important. So when we're talking about hip hop and R&B and the transition of the music, what we're really saying is look at how the energy, and look at how our way of communicating and supporting or downing each other has transitioned over the years. And here's the crazy part. There's a lot of positive, uplifting music, R&B and hip hop that is out there,
True.
but you have to search for it.
That's
Commercial
true.
radio doesn't want to play it. Major industry
Wow.
do not want to play it.
And that's
Why
what I
would
was
I,
going to touch on, Doc.
why would I want you walking around feeling like you can do this out here? But it's a rap artist who's singing it and rapping it that you hardly know his name, but they're gonna give that other knucklehead, black looking person with stuff hanging out of their head and stuff all over their face. And I'm not even necessarily so mad about that, but they continue to maintain a particular image of what the black man looks like, especially for male black hip hop artists. And I gotta walk around every day as a black man trying to combat that particular image. Because I have to show that there's more for diversity of what black men look like, and that rap artist isn't it. But they don't want to show the other type of artists who are being more positive minded, because that's not
like
what
brother D1. Brother D1 is definitely, a brother who represents, positive hip hop, and KRS1, Knowledge Reigns Supreme. He's definitely a brother who has held it down for years in that aspect without moving his foot. Without moving his foot. So I definitely got a high regard for him too as well. And in the content on today, you got these bees are not loyal. You know what I'm saying? Then you got sisters talking about being a weekend fling. Now, I'm not supporting males talking like that either, but I'm just saying it shocked me. Now you have these various songs that has a certain type of content where now you're dealing with the other side of them being the same. You know what I mean? And now that's being viral, if you will. And if you speak out against anything like that, you're persecuted. Your show is shut down, or things of that nature.
Right.
So I'm no one's judge per se, but I will say this. I will say that I know that it's not good for our consciousness, and I can't see how it is making us mentally healthy, if you will, spiritually healthy, by consuming that type of content, the lyrical content that is being spewed out of the mouths of these hip hop and R&B artists these days. And many people try to make it seem like it's so innocent, but it's amazing to me. And I always like to use this analogy, how when we grew up and Run DMC, they said my Adidas, and what did we start rocking? When Nelly was doing the Nikes, the Air Force Ones, what happened? When Cameron started wearing pink, what happened? So it blows my mind how people got the audacity to say that, oh, it's no big thing. I'm like, are you serious right now?
It is statistically and economically proven that Black people, 13% of the population, shape the buying trajectory of fashion, music, entertainment. We shape it.
Yes, we do.
White people look to us in many ways to determine what is considered cool, and then they take it and market it even more back to us, and use our artists to also help to promote that.
Absolutely.
Part of what the book talks about Black fragility, which is also a part of the onset of Black fragility, is the desire for a Black person to use proximity to whiteness as a way to overcome their Blackness. The perfect example of that lyrically is when Jay-Z says, when he raps about OJ, he says, "I'm not Black, I'm OJ." Okay. Which was to say that you could be OJ as long as you want, but they will remind you that you are Black. In other words, your proximity to whiteness has caused OJ, right, to forget that he was Black, only to be reminded that he was Black. So
Yeah.
what a lot of black
Yeah.
people do is they try to create a separation between themselves and other black people by moving closer to what is considered whiteness, whether it's in their job, the way they speak, the way they present themselves. And some of it is for the purpose of survival. I understand the double consciousness. I understand the need to code switch, but it still is an issue that we have to address, because it's in that proximity to whiteness that we find ourselves downsizing or downplaying our blackness. And that's what has happened with a lot of these artists. I mean, they make so much money. You're rapping and you're rapping and you're repping, Gucci. And Gucci doesn't owe you anything. Yet you've made that brand as something to aspire to, because it is a luxury brand, and you want to separate yourself from the deprivation or the poverty of where a person may come from, and they want to show that they are of a luxury state. But you could use that same energy and rep a black brand, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
You can't. But you see, that's the conversation that we are literally actually able to have right now in 2021 that may have been crazy sounding had we tried to have this conversation 20 years ago. And that's why I think Black Fragility as a book is important, because we can now have the conversation. It is going to be tough for some people, because some people don't want to be held accountable. But I do think this is an opportunity for us to raise the bar by raising the conversation.
Wonderful, wonderful. So with that being said, what is the takeaway you want people to have from the Black Fragility book?
Yeah. The book is structured in 3 parts. It includes 5 letters to men. It talks about the impact of fatherhood amongst Black men. And then it has 5 letters to women, addressing very specific topics of issues that I think that needs to be dealt with. They're very important and very direct letters. And it ends with recommendations on some practices for solutions that we can employ. I want people to walk away with the book jumpstarting courageous conversations for them. Right? And courageous conversations meaning that these are going to be some difficult topics that we may not want to talk about, right? But,
Absolutely.
With Black men, let's talk about this thing about leadership and how in so many ways we've given up on being leaders in our community. When I talk about leadership about it to Black men, I'm not talking about how a woman wants a Black man to lead. I'm talking about how a Black man is just supposed to lead as a person for themselves, as a man within their space, and how they're supposed to hold the fort down, beginning with holding themselves down. I talk about hip hop, right, in the book, like what we talked about. I talk about how many baby mamas you're gonna have,
right?
And so let's have a very honest conversation about that.
Wow.
And I talk about how there are things that Black men have done that was a behavior, like how you mentioned, hey, you know what? I wasn't raised to be in this particular lifestyle, but I made a decision, and I have my reasons why. Let's dissect that a little bit more. I talk about that in the book. Let's talk about when did that one decision happen, and how did it permeate through the rest of your life, and how much did it destroy your community and your own family, and you've had to work to repair that. Let's own that. And for Black women, I talk about how, hey, Black women, ladies, let's think about something. You stand in the way of fathers being fathers just as much as you talk about their deadbeat dads. For every deadbeat father there's a Black woman preventing a Black man from being a Black father to their Black child.
And it's not because he is a deadbeat.
Right,
it's
right.
Because she can't have the father.
Right. Because she wants to be an
the child.
Absolutely.
To get back at the
Absolutely.
father, and then the father wants to use the mother as an scapegoat because he doesn't like her, or he wish he never did it, or that's not the way he wanted it to be, and he uses that as an scapegoat, which is really a cop-out.
So what you're describing there is what the book is doing. I'm talking about both sides of the issue.
Wow.
How
that's
Black,
a good book.
you see See, so black women, let's talk about, yeah, you standing in the way of these black men being black fathers to their black children and then acting as if you didn't do it. Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. Right.
Mm.
I'm talking to the women and I'm saying, hey, ladies, guess what? This whole thing about you being nurturing that we keep on saying, which is false, it's egregious and it's false. Women are nurturers. No, they're not. You're not a nurturer simply because by default of being female. Nurturing is a taught and learned trait.
Behavior. It
Which
sure
means
is.
men are
It
nurturers
sure is. My wife is a
and women.
wonderful woman because of her mother.
Right, right. You see, she taught how to
Oh
be a
yeah.
nurturer. See,
Oh yeah,
and
man.
guess what? And here's men are just as nurturing as women are. What happens is how we show up looks different, so we call it different names. But when you really look and analyze it, it's the same thing. So we talk about how, hey, listen, let's look at this nurturing thing, and I talk about domestic violence. Women, you're statistically just as domestically violent as black men are. Black women, you're just as domestically violent as black men are. So when we begin to look at and dissect what these statistics are and how black women show up, it adds to the conflict that black men have with black women and that black women have with black men based on how black men are showing up. And my book is
Mm.
addressing the distrust and the disrespect that is found between the two of us. Because
Wow.
we are both looking to have power and demand respect over somebody. And because the white supremacist world that we live in does not allow it for us to be who we can be in the world without question and without apology, we then turn to each other and try to dominate.
And sometimes too, I'm quite sure you're addressing this in the book. It's because things have happened uh, to the opposite sex by the opposite sex that influences their disdain feeling towards the opposite sex.
Opposite sex, right? Exactly.
You
Yeah.
know, absolutely. So but hey, family, make sure you go pick up that book. Make sure you go because if we keep going, we probably talk about the whole book.
Yeah. But I told you I was up for it, man. I appreciate you having me
Oh,
on.
okay. Well, wonderful because I know that a lot of times, see me, what I do is I listen to both sides. That's what I do. You know, I've experienced some traumatic things by our women too. You know what I'm saying? And that's family members as well. You know what I'm saying? And everybody's mental strength is not to the capacity of myself where I don't conglomerate all women in the same category due to the traumatic experiences I've had experienced from our women. That never made me feel like, well, I don't want to marry our women, because a family member did this to me. You see what I'm saying? Because I had personally been molested by some of my mother friends, you know what I'm saying? And a family member of the opposite sex. You see what I'm saying? And so I know that everybody's mental capacity is not there like that because some people they're egregious because of that happening to them. And so sometimes sisters don't know why some men are the way that they are, and it's because men have been inflicted emotionally with trauma, and they've been taught that if I express that, then I'm a wimp. And then some women have been lied to, verbally, physically abused, raped, molested by men. And so it keep continuously happening to them over and over and over again. And now you have this revolving door of trauma happening to both the man and the woman. And then now you got two broken people trying to come together and make something whole, such as a family.
Boom. Boom.
And I personally feel like I love what you're doing because that book is medicinal. I believe, brother, this is just way I feel. And in my humble opinion, I feel like it is the medicine to help to cure our ailment. And I'm praying that people will go get that book, family. I hope you all go get that book. Please, doctor, please expound some more if you'd like to touch on some more jewels that you have in there before we close out. That'd be great.
Well, first of all, what you just shared is really what the heart of the book is. Look at how these two broken pieces are coming together to make a whole, and who's suffering at the most of it are our children. And then we have a matter of generational trauma that's being passed on. And I really like the way that you put that together. Everyone is a part of the process of hurting and being hurt. That's just what it is. One of the things I write about in the book is a last point I'll highlight. I point out, listen, some of the worst things that's happened to women has happened from other women.
Whoo. Wow. That's not touched on a lot.
You see, listen, women know women.
What? Man, my wife tells me all the time.
I can recall.
Women discernment is sharp.
Listen, I can recall, even in just in a relationships before where you have a woman, I'm thinking she's mad that I'm doing something or about because another woman had approached me, and I'm like, I'm not trying to talk to this woman, but I've learned over time, hey, women know women. She's not mad at me. She's mad at what this other woman is potentially trying to do because they know how they move. And some of the worst experiences that I've had when I work with my coaching clients, it's the experiences that they've had with their own mothers, with their own sisters, and with other women who are in their life have done some of the most atrocious things to them. And it wasn't another man. Had nothing to do with another man, right? It's just the interaction between women. So the book tackles these issues on both sides of the aisle. 5 letters to men, 5 letters to women. But as a conflict resolution practitioner, my goal is to discuss the problem and then to always end with us looking at solutions that we can do, what we can do. And so this book is big on promoting mental health counseling. It's big on promoting that you get coaching. The great thing about that is your mental health therapist is able to look back and work with you, and your coach is able to, your life coach is able to look forward, look at where you are now and talk about where you want to go forward. I think ultimately people need both at some point in their life. And the book also promotes how we can do some things to better build our communities and our families economically as well as spiritually, as we continue to help each other heal, encourage, love, and protect Blackness. That's all I have for you.
Wonderful, wonderful. So family, remember, there you go. You can go to his website, www.adriancarterspeaks.com. Also, you can follow him on all major social media platforms, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, by that name as well. You can find him there, Adrian Carter. Okay. Matter of fact, I believe it's Adrian N. Carter.
You could find me on those platforms at Adrian Carter Speaks, just like the website. So you were correct.
Okay, excellent.
So and for the book, if you go directly to blackfragility.net, you're also able to go right to the site where you can pre-order the book. That is blackfragility.net.
Okay, I'll make sure I put that in for you before we tune out. Okay, fam, we thank you all so much for tuning in on this evening. It has definitely been a pleasure for us to be able to share this content with you. Please, if you would be so kind to share this, it'll be great. I believe that we need this. This is therapeutic for us.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to bring healing to the community. Okay. I don't like to point the finger thing, because the truth is, like the doctor is talking about, is that both genders are guilty of all the above crimes. And the better will be when, is that correct, Doc?
It is.
Okay, excellent. The better off we'll be, family, once we confront these issues and we deal with these issues head on. And what I like to say is, it's like sweeping something under the rug, right? Eventually, you're going to sweep so much stuff under there, it's going to have a lump.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be noticeable. So what I'm saying is that lump is showing.
I like it is. It is. I love that example, man. It
All
is.
praises be, brother. Thank you so much. So that lump is showing, and I believe that this book is, like I said, it is actually the medicine to heal our ailment that has been plaguing our social uh, issues that we've been having for a long, long time. It really is. And I'm not just saying it really, really is, because I've noticed it to myself. You know, I have a beautiful relationship with my wife, and I've seen my wife's mother and father, peace and blessings be upon our dad. He transitioned, a couple years ago. And I seen a beautiful relationship. I mean, been with the same woman all those years until it was time for him to leave. 40 plus years. Seen my auntie and my uncle married for that long. I mean, almost long as I've been alive. Seeing how much my grandfather, my father's father, and my grandmother, they as long as my father and them been alive. And peace and blessings be upon him and my grandfather. They both transitioned. I'm the third. But I said that to say this: love amongst us do exist.
Yeah, I like that.
Some of us really do love each other.
I like that.
And I said that because I want you all to know that it is possible. It is possible. My wife, she experienced traumatic things too, family. And so have I. But we love each other. We have going on 6 years. All praises be, we give thanks. Going on 6 years that my wife, I'm talking about in love with each other. Nobody can dethrone my wife. She sits on the throne of my heart. So sisters, I want you to hear that. Okay, some of us, we love you. You understand? I want some of you all to know that. I know it's hard for some of you to believe because you've been hurt so much, but I want you to understand that that person didn't know how to handle you with tender love and care. They didn't understand how fragile you are, that something that could be broken. And then on it says handle with care, fragile.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? Some men that broke your heart, understand they didn't know how to handle you because they didn't have the mental capacity to do so.
Well, they were fragile themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Man.
So sisters, I just wanted y'all to hear that, brothers and sisters, that we some of us do love each other. And please don't give up on love. I'm saying that to you because some of us, we give up on our own people and we go outside of ourselves because of what we experienced. Please heal. Please heal, because we need our bloodline to keep going. We need our family structure to stay alive. It's within the family. It has to stay in the family. We cannot go outside the family. When we do that, understand, we breed ourselves out. It has nothing to do with you just don't believe in being a free spirit, you closed-minded. No, it has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with survival. And this is what we have to understand. I'm not saying be with somebody abusive just for the sake of survival. I'm not saying that. What I'm telling you is it is about that, and about generational wealth being passed amongst us and being passed down to our children and to our grandchildren and keeping us alive. I'm just leave that there. I'm gonna leave that there. Again, I thank you for tuning in, and hopefully something was said tonight that impacted your life. Again, Dr. Adrian Carter, thank you so much for coming on the platform. For my wife, Dana Walden, and I, we greatly appreciate you, man, coming on and blessing the house.
We appreciate you, and I'm always humbled for these opportunities. So thank you, man. Really, thank you.
You are definitely welcome. Any more last words? Anything else you wanted to say?
Just check me out at blackfragility.net or go onto the website. Follow me on social media, Adrian Carter Speaks. And when you go onto the website, pre-order your book, blackfragility.net. It's actually going to be officially published on November 4th. All of the ebook pre-orders are located on the website on Amazon. And I'll say this: I want this book to be a bestseller, national bestseller, New York Times bestseller, all those opportunities that books can have. And we can help it push into that. So I appreciate your support in making this book, as they would say, go viral, right? This message is what needs to go viral. So I appreciate it.
Hey, you know it. You know it. All right, my brother, you have a blessed one. Thank you.
You too.
Well, family, there we have it again. Another powerful session. Thank you all for tuning in. Audrey, thank you for tuning in. Suzette, thank you for tuning in. Queen Rhonda, thank you for tuning in. And Barbara Ray Wilkerson, thank you so much for tuning in. You all have a blessed evening. Good night.